Philip Bump is a political reporter for the Washington Post, and he's here with me now. So, Philip, as we just heard from Charlie, Manafort is embroiled in this controversy with his former ties to the Ukraine. Hillary Clinton's campaign manager released a statement on Friday reading in part, Paul Manafort's resignation is a clear admission that disturbing connections between Donald Trump's team and a pro-Kremlin element in Russia and Ukraine are untenable, adding, you can get rid of Manafort, but that doesn't end the odd bromance Trump has with Putin. All right, so we wanted to get that statement out for our viewers. So how is this going to play out for Trump? And more importantly, will Trump supporters and voters at large care?
It's a great question. My guess is they probably won't care very much. Trump supporters have proven to be very, very resilient, that they support Donald Trump pretty much no matter what. You know, he made that famous comment, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue. It's probably true, right? I don't know if supporters, people who don't currently back him will care that much about the intricacies of how his former campaign manager dealt with payments from Ukraine. I think there is this general sense of weirdness around Trump and Putin, which I think is what the Clinton camp was trying to highlight there. But I think that there are so many other things that people are skeptical of Donald Trump for beyond just this that I don't know this is going to move the needle a whole lot.
Well, it's also interesting, Philip. Yesterday at a rally, Donald Trump did something that had a lot of us saying, wow, he regretted for some past remarks that he said may have caused pain to others. Didn't exactly say which ones, you know, saying that John McCain wasn't a war hero, going after the judge. I mean, there was a lot of things that he probably was thinking about, but that was largely overshadowed by this Manafort resignation. So is there a problem with messaging there?
Well, so first of all, yes, he said that he had these regrets about what he'd said. He wasn't very specific. It was about as lightweight a regret giving as you can possibly have. But yes, this again is Donald Trump's constant problem, is that he will do something that seems like the right thing to do for his campaign, but then it gets blown away by something which is bad news for the campaign. So apparently my colleague Robert Costa reports that shortly before he went out last night and gave that speech that was well received, he learned about this issue with Manafort and the Ukrainians, which certainly threatened to be headlines for days on end and probably would still be talked about today because of that. But then he got angry and he decided to fire Manafort, and that all unfolded this morning. And so once again, he'd had this good day, but we end up spending most of the day talking about Manafort.
All right. Now I think what we're going to be talking about in the next news cycle is Donald Trump at a rally today in Michigan made a plea to African-American supporters. I want to play a little bit of that for our viewers.
A new future requires brand new leadership. Look how much African-American communities have suffered under Democratic control. To those I say the following: what do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose? I say it again, what do you have to lose? Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty, your schools are no good, you have no jobs, 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
All right, a couple of things. Number one, Donald Trump is getting crushed in Michigan by Hillary Clinton. Some polls have her up as much as 10% in that state. He delivered that plea to African Americans to a largely white audience. The city or the village that he was in, Dimondale, is something like 93% white. He's polling so low with African Americans. I mean, Mitt Romney in 2012 had 6%. Trump is below 2%. Can he win them over?
There's literally no sign he can, and that is one of the worst arguments I've ever heard for appealing to African-American voters, essentially saying that, you know, all of you are living in poverty, right? Which is just, it's baffling, right? He has consistently had
almost
trouble.
like, you know, sort of, it sounded, and I don't want to read too much into it, but it sounded like he was sort of scolding, you know, hey, this is your situation.
Well, there was definitely a level of condescension there, saying, you know, for 60, 70 years, that's what he said last night, 60, 70 years you've been voting for Democrats, and look what's happened. And that implies that black people go to the polls and just like, oh, I have to vote for a Democrat and I'm not going to think about it, which is just crazy. There's a lot of popular support. Like Barack Obama's very popular in the African-American community. They think he's doing a good job. So yeah, it's a bad pitch. It is a bad argument to make. And I think that what it reinforces more than anything is that Donald Trump really doesn't know how to speak to the African-American community, which is why he's not doing well.
All right, let me play the other side of that argument now, which is to say that what Donald Trump said today really does hit home, which is, look, If you are African American in this country and in the past, you have voted for Democrats across the board, and your parents and your grandparents voted for Democrats going back to JFK and LBJ, you have not done well. I am a change agent. I will bring change to you. I will make your lives better. Is that something that can sound appealing or be appealing to African American voters?
So I'm obviously a white guy, and so it's hard for me to say.
Really?
What, I don't like to be upfront.
You don't know what I am, though. That's the thing.
I don't know that Donald Trump has his finger on the pulse of the African American community. I think it is safe to say that the African American community votes Democratic in part because Democrats historically were advocates for Black Americans. That's why Black Americans support Democrats, because of things like the Civil Rights Act and the giant transition we saw in the parties 50 years ago. But secondarily, because they see Democrats out there fighting for issues that they care about. And I think that that is the fact. That, yes, Barack Obama has not been as successful with his agenda as he hoped to be, but he's also facing a Congress, which is comprised of mostly Republicans for most of his tenure. And I think that people recognize the nuance there. I don't know that Donald Trump's blanket, well, I'm different than people in the past. I think that that difference, the way that he's different from Mitt Romney, for example, clearly is something that makes black voters concerned.
Let me ask one last question here. The press, a lot of people have focused on some of the gaffes that Donald Trump has said. They focus on some of the things which are, some people have called, even the President of the United States called demagoguery. But now that he seems in the last couple of rallies to be on message to the extent that he can be, he's reading from a teleprompter, he's got a new team in place that has probably hammered home the importance of what he's trying to accomplish here. Are we going to start to see a shift to the refocusing on Hillary Clinton and her email scandal, which is not going away? If anything, it's getting worse. She has a lot to answer for.
Yes, right. I mean, Hillary Clinton has been plagued by this in part because there's constantly new pieces. You know, if it had all come out a year and a half ago, I think we'd be past it. But constantly new emails and new revelations, she constantly has to answer for it. And it is definitely something that puts her in a bad position, I think, with some justification. But the problem is we saw Donald Trump last night reading from the teleprompter. We just saw there, he had a teleprompter there, but then he turned and he started riffing and saying, what do you have to, I mean, that's where he gets in trouble, when he turns and does the riffing. I think that he was successful in part because he had those teleprompters, he was new to it, he was reading off of it, not straying much. The more he feels comfortable, the more he starts riffing, the more he gets into trouble.
All right, and Hillary Clinton and President Clinton have said that they will not accept any more money from foreign countries, foreign entities in the Clinton Global Initiative. Is that a tacit admission that some of the things that people have been saying are true, and that they recognize that it is a problem for somebody who's running for the presidency to accept donations from these other entities? Yeah,
well, I think you raise the question that is immediately obvious, which is why are they doing it right now, right? Yes, it's hard. I'm sure that they have very good spin on how this is not an admission that this is a political liability. It's clearly a political liability. It is. You have the emails on one hand, you have the Clinton Foundation on the other, and clearly they recognize that this has done damage to them as well. Donald Trump has taken that ball and run with it and said, you know, pay for play and all these things, which are not warranted and not substantiated. But it is enough of a problem that now they're trying to address it to some extent.
All right, Philip Bump, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.